There is no room for a downpipe. Zero. I don't even know how it's gonna clear the gate. Welcome back to part 2 of doing the rotated setup for the STI. I am very, very excited. I know a lot of YouTubers say that, but I genuinely am. I love this car, and seeing the rotated kit fully on the STI will just complete me. Today, hopefully we make some good progress because I had to run a bunch of errands this morning, so I'm starting a little later than I wanted. We picked up some new gaskets for the exhaust manifold. Unfortunately, the gaskets I ordered from Grimsby got lost in transit, or they just basically haven't shown up to my house. I have no idea where they're at. And right now the car is a complete mess. We have a lot of organizing still we need to do. But for now, I think we're going to at least mount the headers on the actual block to start, and then we're gonna start installing our TIAL 44mm wastegate, which I am very excited for because it's in my favorite color and it matches the car. These are the headers we're gonna be running on the 2017 STI. These are equal length headers. As you can tell, they are very, very nice because look at the quality of the welds all around. This is actually a B&M fab kit. Evan does great work. You're probably gonna ask, why did I choose B&M over ETS? I have nothing against ETS. I actually am a big fan of their products. I've had them on my 2019 WRX. The thing is, this was just too good of a deal, including the turbo, not to get. And if you're in the market for a rotated kit, I recommend B&M or ETS. You honestly cannot go wrong with either. The headers are now bolted on, and we ended up cleaning this back area, in which we'll go step by step in case you are doing a rotated kit install at home. Let's talk about the new oil feed line we just installed. So this is going to go to the top of the turbo, or however you have it oriented. They're usually a 90-degree fitting like this, and the other end goes to the back of the head here. This is what's going to supply oil to our turbocharger. Now, the old one I used to have is just sitting here for reference. This used to use a banjo bolt on the top of the turbo, and this ended up going to the back of the head. I just have it with a paper towel in case it leaks oil. Now, the interesting part is going to be our main harness. I ended up pretty much pushing it all the way down as far as I can up against those back ABS lines, and you guys can see the zip tie right here. This is, I believe, our front O2 sensor connection. I'm just having it hang out here for now until I try to configure the rest of this. Now, as far as the power steering goes, this is gonna be the interesting part. Starting off on the top, there used to be a little plastic bracket with the same color as this that used to sit right here. I took a flathead, pried it out, and now I pushed this power steering line in between the back of the ABS module and zip tied it to the ABS lines right here. Now, let's work our way down. We'll follow this line down. Now you can tell there is a black one, the one we just talked about, that goes here, and then connected to it, or in series, is this aluminum foil looking line, and that line is also a power steering line that ultimately runs to the power steering pump. One goes to the pump here, and one goes to the reservoir. Originally, those lines are jointed together by this little aluminum bracket. This is actually super easy to pry open, much easier than I thought. You want a long flathead screwdriver like this. I was using this when I originally was trying to knock the wrist pins out of the OEM short block when we were tearing it down. But pretty much get some leverage and start prying at it. Just be careful. There's gonna be a grommet, which is right here. I was just looking for it, that sits in between here. They pretty much hold the lines together. And once you have it pried open, it lets you pretty much move these lines wherever you want. This is where I ended up zip tying this aluminum foil looking line right here to the ABS module. And this lower portion is zip tied right there to the lower part, as well as these things right here. They were originally tabbed into where these holes are back here. I just got a trim removal tool piece, pried it out, and then now I can have more play and just push them down to the side. And that's pretty much how I think everything is gonna sit. I'm sure there's gonna be a little bit of micro adjustments, which I'll tell you guys after. But I think right now, let's move on to the external wastegate assembly. And I think things are looking really good. Here is our 44mm wastegate from TIAL, very beautiful. This is a genuine TIAL 44mm wastegate for anyone wondering. And here are our wonderful collection of springs we'll talk about in a second in different colors: red, yellow, green, blue, black, white, grayish. We have our water fittings and plugs for things we're not going to be utilizing. We'll go over that in a second, as well as our vacuum fittings right here. There's going to be aluminum crush washers, as well as a banjo bolt type of thing going on. And then we have our V-band clamps and our valve seats. Now it's time to assemble our beautiful TIAL 44mm external wastegate. But before we do so, we need to contact our tuner. Our tuner is going to tell us what they want the base spring pressure inside of the external gate to be in order to achieve a certain PSI. For my 17 STI, we are gonna shoot somewhere between 30 and 40 PSI. So what you do is you hit up your tuner like I did, and they tell you, hey, let's do 20 PSI for the base spring. So what do I do from here? I scroll over, I go to the MVR spring pressure chart, and then because my tile specifically was manufactured after 2012, or for the spring colors, I mean, after 2012, and I wanna shoot for 20-ish PSI, then I'm gonna scroll back over, and it's gonna say, okay, I need to run a combination of the plain spring, the black spring, and the red and yellow springs, which I have conveniently already laid out. So now that we have an idea of what we want the spring pressure to be, we want to now open this. There are 6 Allen key screws and we're both holding the actual face of this onto the rest of the external wastegate we're gonna have to remove. Now, let me just quickly say this. Do not run every single spring. You're gonna send your car to the moon. This is what the inside of the wastegate looks like with the cover off. Now, here is the fun part. We have to get all these springs in here, and notice there are channels inside of the actual assembly that the springs need to sit in, starting with the smaller diameter, which is the yellow, and working our way progressively upwards in increasing diameters. We're going to pretty much stack them accordingly. And I just wanted to double check what the plain spring looks like, and this is it, just in case you're confusing it with this one. Let's start off with the yellow spring. This one goes first, and this thing also fits pretty snug, which is what you want. Then the red spring, make sure it's sitting all the way down flush, followed by black, and lastly, our plain spring. This part is probably gonna take forever, and you're gonna see me go from different positions, but that's what we have to do in order to install this thing. Just because, let's see, I wanna make sure that the springs stay seated. This cover still has to get on, or go on, I should say, and then get compressed by the springs. And notice the tool I have here. This is a trigger clamp. Pretty much acts like a little hand vise in a way. See how right now, the cover is wiggling back and forth and it's only on one spring? That means the tallest spring here is now seated on the inner ring of the cover. I'm gonna have to compress this, and I think I can do it with my body weight, but it's just gonna be challenging to do with one person while also trying to get a screw in. Nevertheless, we'll time lapse through this and we will pretty much give it a go. Oh my God, was that a complete pain in the ass to install? I'm sure everybody that's installed external wastegates will say the same thing, but I guess, you know, it's just my first time. It is what it is. A little piece of advice before we keep going with the fittings here on the gate itself. If you're gonna do this without a bench vise, see, I don't have a bench vise here. We use a trigger clamp like you saw in the time lapse. Pay attention to the second half of the time lapse where I open the drawer and I use one end of the trigger clamp and the other end on the actual face of the external gate. I just did that because I was pretty much trying to fight the two sides here moving every single time I was putting more force or tension on it. Obviously the springs want to keep going this way, but we want to keep going that way, and it's just kind of a pain. And for some reason my trigger clamp here on this side has some play and it wasn't going down evenly. I don't know if you noticed that, but we finally did it. Now let's get into the fittings. As far as the fittings go, I'm going to say this is the lower hemisphere, this is the upper hemisphere. On the lower hemisphere, you have 2 water ports and 3 vacuum ports. On the upper hemisphere, you have 1 port for vacuum and another port for vacuum for a total of 2. So on the lower hemisphere, assuming per instruction that we're not utilizing the water cooling features, we are not gonna touch them, we're not gonna plug them up. Don't do anything with them, leave them as is. Now with the 3 lower ports for vacuum on the lower hemisphere, you're gonna have to plug them up using these plugs. You have a total of 3. However, one of them is going to be utilized for one of these fittings. This is gonna be our vacuum fitting. So you're gonna have 1 vacuum fitting on the lower hemisphere with 2 plugs, and the top portion, either here or here, depending on how you wanna orient it, is gonna have your other fitting for vacuum. With that being said, we'll time lapse through it real quick, and then I'll show you guys how my wastegate is configured. It's pretty similar to other people's setups, but just wanna make sure that you guys understand before we keep going, and hopefully this thing is mounted on the uppipe very soon. These things are swiveling because I didn't want to tighten them all the way down. Let's do a quick overview before we mount this thing onto the uppipe here. So on the lower hemisphere, which is what I'm calling this side, we're gonna have our fitting, we're gonna have this thing, and then we're gonna have 2 aluminum crush washers on each side because this is a banjo bolt. And again, there's 3 vacuum sources, one here, one here, one here. plug any of the two up and then utilize the vacuum fitting. And also worth mentioning that these are the water ports for the coolant to run through. We're not gonna touch them, like I said, so we're gonna leave them empty. And the other thing is, notice how on the plugs on the time lapse, I utilize PTFE thread sealant. That's because I personally don't like using Teflon tape. It can get stuck and lost and all that other stuff. So it's totally up to your preference, but that's why I don't use Teflon tape. And as far as the upper hemisphere here of the actual external wastegate, you have this port and this port for vacuum. So I'm gonna utilize this one. Again, totally up to you, but just plug up the other one. With that being said, how do I mount this thing to the up pipe? Well, we're gonna need to find the appropriate size ring here. This thing is going to go into the bottom of the diaphragm there. And pretty much, you notice how the inside of this flange here has this ring. Surprise, surprise, it's gonna be this small one. Notice how it seats perfectly. It moves very slightly, but this is the right size. And I know that because if I take the bigger one, obviously it's not gonna be the right fit and there's gonna be a leak. With that said, we'll grab the ring, put this down. That's pretty much taken care of. And now we can finally assemble the external wastegate to the up pipe. For this next part, I'm just gonna do it off camera. I don't even wanna bother with a time lapse because it's gonna be very, very difficult for me to do solo without a bench vise as well. Now, the thing is, this ring needs to get compressed to open up the diaphragm because if you seat this on the flange where it's supposed to go, there's gonna be a gap. And with that gap, you cannot install the V-band clamp that comes with it. So you guys see the issue. With that being said, let me take care of this and then I'll maybe give you guys some tips and tricks and then we can actually mount the up pipe onto the headers and it's gonna look sick. About an hour and a half has passed and you're probably wondering, well, what's happened with the up pipe and the external wastegate? Long story short, couldn't do it. So what did we end up doing? We took a trip down to Harbor Freight. We got a new vise. We still have to install it. I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And then that way I can now properly, hopefully seat the external wastegate onto the flange now that I don't have to hold both the external wastegate, the pipe, and everything like that. So let's go install this and then let's continue. Finally, things are organized and clean once more. The up pipe is in the vise, it's secured, it's not going anywhere. And I think I'm gonna use the trigger clamp here. Very similar method to what we did earlier to try to compress this. I can still get the V-band clamp on and we should have no issues. We still have that seat, it's still there. Let's see how much easier life is with the correct tools, as always. Oh yeah, look at that. Super, super easy, man. Holy crap. And that's pretty much seated. Because now look at this. I can get the V-band on with zero issues, dude. That is freaking awesome. I guess it doesn't matter, but just to make my life easier, I'll put the bolt facing me. No. Sorry guys, stupid, my brain's dumb right now. I just flipped the clamp around so that way the pass-through is facing me. And then I can just feed the bolt this way and then have the threads on the other side. Sorry, my brain is honestly done for the day. I'm running on 4 hours of sleep, barely ate anything today, but I want to get this on the car at least. No, I'm not even second guessing that it's not seated. It's fully on there. Oh boy, you guys are gonna be upset. I went ahead and mocked the up pipe in the car, didn't even bolt anything down, just try to connect it loosely to the headers, just threw it in there. And I made a stupid mistake. I was previously using this fitting, or these threads, and these threads for my fittings, right? Well, this is where the turbo is gonna sit. How the hell is that gonna clear with the giant ass turbo we have sitting on the flange? So now I know why people utilize these ports, the front face and the side port here. Nothing else changed. I just pretty much swap places with the plug and the fitting, and same thing, leave this open and use this port instead. I think with that being said, I will rotate the pipe and I'm also going to install the dump tube, which is right here. It's another V-band clamp, as you can see the flange. I'm not gonna do that on camera, don't wanna bore you guys. Same process as we did with the installation of the external wastegate on the up pipe. And then I think we're ready to go. We're gonna clean up the head a little bit and then throw this thing on. All right, let's drop you in. So I have the holes for where the support bracket on the up pipe go to the head. Everything lines up. I'm gonna take care of the V-band downstairs, and I think this is gonna wrap it up. Wastegate, down pipe, up pipe, everything is secure. I did not fully bolt down the V-band clamp from the up pipe to the header. These are fully secure, but I think everything else is going to pretty much live where it's at. You see the, God, what's it called? This fucking tube. You know what I'm talking about. It fully clears the axle. I mean, look how much room there is for this dump tube. That's what it is, dump tube. But everything is ready to go. And you know what? I promised you guys we're gonna at least mock up the turbo. We're gonna go ahead and do that right before we end this video. And next video, I am gonna cover how to route the vacuum lines to your external wastegate, or sorry, not external wastegate, the electronic boost control solenoid that I'm probably gonna mount here again. But yeah, I'm super stoked. This thing looks fucking sick. Well, things are not ending how I thought they were gonna end because we have a major issue. As you can see, the two flanges are mated together. I think this thing still needs to get clocked more this way. It is rubbing against the power steering line here. But the big fucking problem, there is no room for a downpipe. Zero. I don't even know how it's gonna clear the gate. Okay, this is gonna be a good stopping point. And yeah, I have no idea what the fuck's gonna happen. Well, what an ending to a video. I was honestly not expecting that, but it is what it is. Hopefully we figure out a solution to this sooner than later. Got a lot of stuff going on. Finals is coming up in the next 2 weeks, so you may not see a solution to this till after, but nevertheless, hope you guys enjoy this video. Have a good Thanksgiving if you guys are celebrating. And as always, I will catch you on the next one.